Good evening. We are back for our workshop session. If everyone could go ahead and mute, I'm getting a little bit of feedback from folks, but it is 6:03. We have a quorum with council members Allen, Clay, and Taylor. So we're going to go ahead and start the workshop session at this time. The first item on the agenda is presentation by the 6 West Development Team on the results of the district planning meetings conducted through virtual meetings and workshop sessions.
Okay, Mayor, so Deanna is going to share her screen to do this presentation.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. This is Artie, Economic Development Director. On this evening, I would like to welcome everyone out. After I'm finished with my remarks, Michelle Alexander will be talking about the process that we went through as far as public outreach, and then we'll turn the time over to Deanna and Bill, and they will make a presentation on the findings during the district planning meetings. I'll turn the time over to Michelle Alexander.
Hi, good evening. I'm not seeing the presentation yet. Is Deanna able to share her screen?
So it was not allowing me to share as another participant is sharing, is what it says.
But now I see it. I don't know if others do.
Oh, it looks
Yeah,
like
I can see it.
I think I've got control now. Okay. All right. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, you might. Maybe if you put it in slideshow, then we could get the full. Yeah,
there
thank
we
you.
go.
And then,
All
Artie,
right.
did you want to walk through orientation of the project before talking about participation to follow Deanna's slides?
Artie, you're muted.
Hey, Artie, your mic is muted.
Artie, did you want to talk through the overview of the project? The agenda was going to give a little overview. We, I think, introduced the team, the Sizemore group with Bill De St. Aubin and Deanna Murphy from Sizemore, doing the overall project. I don't know if you can do the next slide, Deanna. Artie, are you able to get audio?
I don't think you can.
Deanna, can you go to the next slide?
It'd be helpful if you put it in presentation mode.
You didn't hear me?
Now we
Can anyone
can.
hear me?
We can now, sir. Yes, sir. We got you, Artie. I'm not sure if we have Deanna able to move the slides, though. I'm sorry, folks. Thank you.
Very, I don't know.
Okay.
All right.
So, Artie, did you want to orient everyone to the site and the plan?
I could do that if you want.
Or Bill? Fire away,
Let's
Bill.
go.
Yeah. All right. So everybody in this meeting is familiar with the site, but we want to go ahead and give you an update. We're honored to show you what we've accomplished through all the input and through all the great community input we had, which was really a critical step in the project. The Main Street, just to remind you guys, the new Main Street or perpendicular Main Street is Columbia Avenue. And then it has 2 other parallel routes, Harvard Avenue and John Wesley. And it's kind of at that center of the new name of 6 West, which I really like that name y'all came up with. And what I wanted to point out, we immediately, I'll point out one thing looking at the orientation, just to let you know. we immediately began to think about the post-pandemic response, and I'll talk about that through my presentation. But one of the things we did that's already planned for it is the traffic can go around the main street. Your grid allows it, and we designed it that way so that you could shut this down for festivals. Well, in a post-pandemic or in a pandemic world, that's going to be important to get the cars off there and let the restaurants spill out onto that street and have that social distancing. So I thought it was good that our design was already ready for the new normal. Next. Just to remind you of the process we're going through right now and presenting on, we're developing district level map of existing conditions, which the survey was complete about a month and a half ago. We began to engage the private sector. I've got some reports from what we've heard back from some of the major developers in town. And then really the missing link was engaging the community. I thought the whole team did an exceptional job in this different environment in terms of pivoting really quickly and having great community input. I was really amazed at what the team did and what your community did. Refined preferred options and then develop infrastructure scope and funding strategy and council approval. And we're kind of at 5 now and ready to begin to talk about 6 to lead towards 7. So so we're presenting on kind of 1 through 5 tonight with a little bit of 6 for discussion. And as we talked about before, what we're trying to do is find, what does the community want? What's the market telling us? And what are the funding options? And where do they overlap? And I think that's where your first phase is, your best move is to get going on the project. It's easy. Those diagrams are easy to draw. It's a lot harder to actually pinpoint and find all that. But I think we've got some good conclusions to present tonight, or at least some good initial findings. The community and stakeholder engagement was just amazing. I can't, Michael's team and the community itself and the mayor and everybody just made that way more successful than I thought it would be. And it was really a lot of positive feedback, but we're going to summarize a really large process. We had 211 responses to the survey. The majority you can see from the green live here. So you're talking about your citizens. Smaller amount worked here, and then somewhere in a really small amount, maybe 18% that filled out the survey do not live or work. So how did they hear about it? They, it was kind of an even split. Received an email or social media invite from the city, so the city did their job, or and then saw an Airport City District web video, so that was some good social media there. Attended, participated in the presentation, and then big others, and then received notification for the utility bill. So the old school way didn't have as big as it, but I think that was really still a good move, because everybody got it. Everybody that pays their bills or gets a bill was notified of this event. But you had really good participation. What improvements? This is something we didn't know what we would hear, but it was interesting to the golf course. The new clubhouse was a big one. We knew that there was some interest, but there was a big 42% of the people wanted to see a new clubhouse and events venue to take advantage of that golf course and the unique location in your town. And then about even split of 2020 said no improvements or improved the playability. There wasn't a lot of support for making a longer course. We had some conversations about that during planning, but there wasn't a whole lot of people saying, hey, we really need to make it a longer course. Next. This one was really about the infrastructure investment in a trail system, and would they likely use it. If you're going to build something like that, you want to make sure it's going to be well used. And I would walk often, 60 to 100% of my travel. That was your major response. I would have preferred to arrive by car. I was lower. I would walk occasionally, 20 to 59% of my travel. I would, some people are not going to walk. But really, this reinforces the main concept of the project was to a walkable community, and you have a lot of support for that. Next. Bicycle lanes and trails were available. How would you like to arrive to the 6 West by bicycle? Another good response, 60. See, I would bike often was your biggest response. I would bike occasionally. I would not bike at all. I would prefer to arrive by other means. Of course, that's like asking everybody if they would go to the gym. Everybody's going to say, sure, I'll go to the gym. And do they really go to the gym? I don't know. But it's still good to know that there's a lot of interest in that. Next. We did a live webinar, 100 people participated, 367 views on the city's Facebook page and 27 views of the city's YouTube channel. And what really was great while we were doing the live sessions, you can see their comments come back from everybody. And it was great to see. What I was worried about when you meet as a group, when you meet face-to-face as a group, is the dialogue between the members is just as important, or maybe even more important. And I was afraid we would lose that going virtual, and we did it. It was in the chats were going back and forth, and they were talking to each other. I thought that was really great. Next. In fact, we got a record of it. When you do an event where everybody's there and talking, you don't have as much of a record as we have right now of all the kind of informal conversations that went on. Now, this is really important. You wanted to.
Sorry, Bill, on the other slide, I just wanted to note to everyone about the next meeting, the June meeting, if you could go back. So June 11th, we're going to have a results meeting. It's going to be at 4 o'clock again, and you can sign up through the web page. I just wanted to make sure we caught that and took advantage of the folks who are listening to invite them to join us for that event. Thanks.
Oh, you know what I just realized is Deanna was going to present the front. And I was going to present the district plans. Oh, well, I'm going to let her present the district plans. I was going to pick up right here. Deanna, we're quick on our feet. So you're going to take it from after I go through this and show the great work you and your team did. So in the developers interview, we learned some things. A lot of them thought the airport was both a pro and a con, and that you need to leverage the other things you have going. And to leverage the MARTA and the convention center may even be more important. And then in retail, of course, our aspirational plan and our submittal for the DRI had quite a bit of retail, and that scared off a lot of the developers. They thought a more realistic amount was 200 to 250,000 square feet of retail. And so when you see our plan, we scaled back phase 1, but still left you the entitlement should it be successful, or should another developer show up with a different opinion. But we think realistically it's more in that line. Connect development to downtown to MARTA, that was a thing we heard again, which is important. And that also came back to us in the ARC comments, that the Main Street we're creating, it's like 2 blocks or a block outside of our study area to get to Main Street. So that connectivity just outside our scope is really important. Cultural destination in phase 1, a lot of them thought, and this has been true in a lot of our work with cities, you need some catalytic civic investment in a facility that's going to draw people. And the cultural center was really well received. So was the idea of a library. We haven't studied your library system enough to know if there one need there, but they do drive traffic to the site, and developers were encouraging that. And then also food hall, which is not actually a moneymaker for developers a lot of times, but your community really loved it, and it draws people to the site. Public investment, they all agreed that the streets, the cultural places, and a parking deck would be a good place to start. Would be very, I don't think from talking to them, unless the city invested in the streets, that would be interested. But the more as you go along this line, the more intriguing the opportunity becomes. Next. And so I'm going to reverse on Deanna. I'm going to let Deanna, do you want me to walk through the first technical drawings and then let you present the actual district plans, Deanna?
Sure, go for it.
Yeah, because I really drove these drawings. I used to work with a civil engineer. So these are complicated drawings, but I'm sure some of you will appreciate it. And this shows the watersheds that are on your site. And working with our civil engineer, we wanted to determine, where does it make sense to build regional ponds, which also lowers the infrastructure costs for the developer, and how does the water flow on your site naturally. And you guys have already done a lot of work on this, and you have located a regional pond in this area. You already have active green infrastructure on the site that we mapped out. And that location will take care of all the development of the retail district and all the incremental district, the way the water flows on that site. So it has the capacity to take care of that. And then he went on and told us, all these other sites are of such a value that they will bury the retention, which is more of the standard practice today in urban areas. And so there's no need to do a regional retention elsewhere. And we got the one we put in the plan is in the perfect place to kind of kick off the project. Next. The other thing I was worried about, because I've driven this site many times, is you have some really steep rolling streets, and that isn't always the best solution for a walkable urban district. If your streets go over 5%, it's hard to have a parallel parking on it. It's hard to walk up it without rails. And so there's a lot of rules that kick into place after 5%. So we wanted to check all your natural grid and the grid of our master plan and see which areas didn't meet that requirement. And really, it wasn't as bad as I thought. It's out where you get into this office district that we have some more steep slopes. Wherever you see the red, we have steep slopes. Wherever you see the green, the natural ground is already 5%. So it really wasn't as drastic as I thought. It is kind of concentrated in an area closer to where the office district is going, which it's actually easier to deal with the grade changes with office. Retail wants to be flat for lots of reasons, and your site is already flat where we're flat enough where we're intending on putting the retail. So this was kind of good news. There is a little at the corner of Main and Main where we're going to be building the road that goes north-south and the road that goes east-west. At that intersection, there is about a 12-foot variation, and then how you get over this Camp Creek is going to be really critical. Do we raise that enough so it's comfortable to take the trails right under it, or do we put a culvert those trails? And most people didn't like to go through a tunnel. They'd rather have like an open bridge. That's an expensive proposition, but it's probably a better proposition for water movement and for people movement down there. So that's some of the things we'll be looking at when we get into the infrastructure recommendations in the next step. All right, the next is going to be the districts, and I'm going to let Deanna present all the work that our team did with that.
All right. So we'll start with
Deanna wants to present.
Yeah, I know. She was saying mama, so it's okay. So phase one is really our 5-year plan. And so we wanted to focus in on that first because that's where we really see the investment from the city coming in terms of the road infrastructure, stormwater infrastructure, and parking. And so the disclaimer we do have on this sheet is that phase one really strategically focuses on less structured parking. So one strategic parking deck so that we can take advantage of the land for surface parking to help bring the land costs and values down. So in this phase, we're looking at Columbia, which is the center street, which are our retail street. We think it's really important not to just focus on the main retail area at Napoleon and Conley, between Napoleon and Conley, but really connect all the way down Columbia to Main Street. That being really key to making sure that we're connecting to MARTA and we're connecting to the existing energy in downtown. We see the area where you've got the smaller rectangle buildings. Those are what we're calling our incremental infill. So that's more focused on local businesses, local entrepreneurs coming in and being able to do smaller retail, office, commercial type uses along that strip. And then you get into the larger retail destination center at the center of the site, which is where we recommend the main parking deck. And so this parking deck, we are recommending it being something more of an entertainment destination with a rock climbing wall on it, And it will also be on the main park, the stormwater park in the back here, along Yale, which also connects to the pedestrian bridge so that we can see some overflow from what's happening at the GICC to the park, into the parking deck, and that surface parking next to it. So there's some good synergy about what's happening across Camp Creek as well. The first phase extends along Columbia Avenue to our office districts, and we're recommending 2 4-story office buildings, which fits in with the market had recommended in terms of what is feasible in terms of office in the next 5 years. And then we have 1 hotel space at what Bill is named Main and Main, where Columbia meets Rhodes. And then behind that, and part of phase 1 is some of the golf course reconfiguration, as well as a golf entertainment venue, which we know has reached out to council in the past. So looking at the opportunities to bring some entertainment to the area, make it really a destination place. The other destination component beyond the big central park is a cultural center. As Bill had mentioned, that was something that the community was really interested in during our community meeting. And as you can see here, in terms of the infrastructure, that would be the next steps for the city, and that we're looking at coming up with cost proposals for you all as part of the next step in this phase, is the road infrastructure highlighted here in blue. So we have Columbia Avenue and Road Street, which we know you all are already working towards those 2. And then some secondary streets, improvements to those streetscapes to really help connect to the parking and connect to the other uses surrounding, that being Napoleon and Conley and Yale and John Wesley. With the pedestrian bridge and the trail component that will run along Yale and up to John Wesley over to MARTA, we think there's a good potential then to really enhance the streetscape through that project as well. As you can see, we've highlighted also the parking deck, the green space, and then the 2 blue dots are the stormwater improvements. You already have the underground stormwater system there, but it's making sure that it's enhanced to work with the existing plans. These are actually images from the community meeting. The majority of these are. The upper left is a rock climbing wall on a parking deck in Chattanooga, so that we do have a precedent study of how they've done this. We have the green space, and then to the right of that is actually the most liked green space image from the community meeting, and it actually has stormwater retention underneath that park. So it's very similar to what we're looking at doing on your site. And then just a couple other destination images, food truck park, food hall, and a cultural center as well. In terms of the infrastructure, these graphics are actually from the previous master plan, and part of our next step is to start to refine these even further and associate them with the cost, with our costing consultant. But you can see here the character of creating really livable streets, making sure that we're accommodating pedestrians, bikes, and cars. What we heard from the community and what will help us refine those are, we did a visual preference study with them, and so these were the top rated images that came out of the community that we'll incorporate into our next step of design into those streetscapes. And you can see all of these are really about the placemaking, about creating outdoor spaces. And I think, as Bill has mentioned with COVID, there's a lot of conversation about how wide do our sidewalks really need to be. How do we appropriately do outdoor dining? And so we'll be taking all of that into consideration as well. So our full build out plan, we've broken down to the individual districts. And this being the retail district, you can see very similar to phase 1. Majority of retail district is built out during phase 1. The additional components are more retail in that surface parking lot adjacent to the major retail districts. And then some additional retail at Napoleon and Conley at Harvard. These are, some of these are images from the community meeting. We are starting to put together some, a pattern book as we call it, or design standards to get the look and feel for each of the districts. So the upper left image is actually the most liked mixed use development from the community. And then the upper or lower left is the image that the community liked most for retail district. And so we started to run with some of these concepts and come up with a palette of case studies and precedents for what that might look like. And really starting to define the character of these districts. The community liked the industrial look. They also liked a futuristic look. And so we'll be looking at how can we combine these styles, or where are they appropriate within the retail district specifically. The stormwater park, we're also looking at some precedents for that in terms of uses. The lower left is actually Millennial Park in Chicago. You can see very active green space opportunity there, and really interesting connection across a major roadway, which you all will have the pedestrian connection as well. So an interesting correlation between the two parks. On the right are different trail types. On the upper right, you've got the type of trail that the majority of the community said they would prefer, multi-use concrete path. On the bottom right is something more along the lines of what cross-country users might use. And we've been talking to Woodward Academy and their cross-country team. We've been put in touch with a couple other organizations that do large 5K races. The opportunity for that 5K trail that's going around the entire site, for that to really be leveraged and utilized for regional events, and therefore drawing people to hotels, drawing people to the retail district, really making it more of a destination. But there's likely going to be different trail types to make that up. So we're looking at where that's appropriate right now. For the Camp Creek build out, you'll see that there is not a lot of build out on this site. And the reason for that is there is a lot of wetlands in this area. So the area, basically all the green areas are either wetlands, or the topography drops so quickly towards the river, we can't develop them. So we looked at specific sites that are developable, looking at what types of uses are already reaching out to Artie and Steve Langford in terms of what uses are appropriate and interested along Camp Creek. So we looked at restaurant facilities, potentially even some with a back drive-in opportunity. That's another consideration with COVID that we've had a lot of conversations about. What does that mean for the retail and restaurant business, and how do we accommodate that? We're also showing a 5-star hotel. We think this is the 5-star site. This is the one that has most visibility. So if a hotel player is looking at the prime site, this is likely the one right at the main entrance. Some other case studies that we were looking at, like I mentioned, this upper one is in as a Roswell Road, major entrance into another development, a lot of surface parking behind it, but you can see where it fronts the road in both these situations. So we still have pedestrian access with any kind of drive-through in the back end. And then on the right, the concept of a 5-star hotel with visibility to the airport and airplane takeoffs. Great example right down the street. The incremental district, looking at full build out, we've started balancing parking needs with buildings. So we're really focusing the density along Columbia Avenue, where we can have 2 to 3 story buildings to really connect down into Main Street. And then infilling, probably the last phase of an incremental district is behind the elementary school here, between Harvard and Napoleon to Conley Street. So really looking at how much we can fit and what's appropriate, looking at smaller lot sizes. This is a district we're still kind of fine tuning as we talk to Artie and Steve to figure out what size lots are appropriate for those who might be interested in this property. Again, these are the images from the community likes. The second one on the top from the left is the one that the community liked the most, and it was a mix of modern and historical or traditional architecture. And so kind of looking at how can we play off of that to bring a mixture of styles into that main street. The office district full build out is about 2 million square feet of office. So this is that longer term play, really looking for an office corporate headquarters to come in, more of the corporate campus type style, but keeping it still in an urban environment. In this case, we really took a lot of time to understand the parking demand for office, still with the realization that you are near a MARTA, and there's shared parking opportunities. And so office does require a lot of parking, even though it can be shared, but we do have 2 large parking decks that we've hidden into the lots to really create a lot of green space opportunities. So make this a really attractive, high-end corporate opportunity. And in terms of style, again, industrial came up as one of the higher preferred imagery for this site. And so kind of pulling some of the components of what we could see in terms of an industrial style in the office park. And then last, we have the golf entertainment district. There is recommended some reconfiguration of the golf course of the 9 holes to allow for some more residential. We have one little area that we can add more residential, keeping residential as close as we can to this district, knowing the noise contours and the deed restriction challenges. We were looking for every opportunity we could to add more residential. So we have some opportunity right on the golf course. And then next to that, we have the Burnsy Garden example that the community liked so much about, actually it's on the next slide, so I'll go there first. The upper left is Burnsy Gardens, where they have an event facility. In this case, it can be your event facility and your golf clubhouse. And then they have rental homes. So if you have a wedding or a big event, people can come and rent these homes that sit on a really nice green space. And so we took that concept and incorporated it into the golf course so that you can have this event facility adjacent to such a nice green, existing green space. Again, the golf entertainment being part of phase 1, the hotel being part of phase 1 on this site. And then we'd be looking at some other retail in this area, this being more of an entertainment district now, looking at uses like breweries that can draw a crowd and keep people entertained in the area. So our next steps are to continue to refine these master plans based on what we hear from you all. We're still, as I mentioned, incorporating some detail like pocket parks, like as I mentioned in the incremental districts, looking at how we can really create more of a place there in the appropriate size blocks in building lots. We'll present our next step to the community on June 11th. From there, we'll continue to refine, but we'll be getting our cost estimator very closely involved to help identify what the cost of the public investment is. We'll provide you the cost in a phase 1 schedule as part of our final presentation to you all in July.
All right, any questions? I am not hearing any questions. Is that because everyone's on mute, or do we just really not have any questions? All right, going once.
Very good presentation.
Okay. All right, Councilman Allen. Anything else?
Nothing else. Just want to remind everybody that June 11th at 4:00 p.m. is the next live virtual summit. So everyone, please visit the website, register for it, and we look forward to seeing you on June 11th at 4:00 p.m.
I had one question, and that is, if I understand it right, you're going to start with surface parking, which is relatively inexpensive compared to the parking garage. And then at some point, you will tear that up and build over on it with the second phase. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
What
yeah,
is-
I think the parking strategy is a really good question because unless the land is over like $1.5 million an acre, it's just cheaper to buy land than to build a structured parking deck. And so your market right now, it doesn't really support deck in a lot of the places. And so what we're saying is, so we eventually want a more urban environment. So in phase one, the strategy would be surface parking. But then as the site densifies, the parking decks will make more sense. But we do think if you built one parking deck through some kind of P3 arrangement, you'll simulate a lot of growth right away. And you'll begin to prove the market for structured parking that way. And I also, we talked a lot about parking. Actually, a lot of this study relates to parking. We did a very complicated spreadsheet that we brought from ULI to balance the mix of uses. We moved retail into the office area and office into the retail area so we could do more shared parking. And eventually that'll lead to some kind of shared parking organization. And the city could benefit if they own the land. And so you're going to have whoever buys the land at surface park is going to benefit in the long run. But you could also look at a strategy where you all own the parking, and as the value increases, you guys capture that value. So that's just a thought as we go forward. It also frees up that you kind of force the shared parking issue because I worked on a lot of older retail developments, and the parking is sold off to a bunch of different people. And then it's hard to redevelop and you're stuck with that surface parking. So you kind of want to control how that parking is done. It's really important to make this successful. That's a long answer, but we've had a lot of conversations about parking. So anyways.
Well, Bill, I thought the presentation was outstanding.
Yeah.
You guys have done a really, really good job of translating a lot of different thoughts and building some consistency into it. And I particularly like the parking strategy because not only does it make sense economically, but we don't know where parking's going to go. We've talked about having obviously at some point. I think it's definitely going to happen that we're going to have self-driving vehicles shuttling around in that location at some point in time. But we may come to a point where there is very little actually auto traffic into that area. And in which case we've got that land, we're not tying it up in parking garages and tying up a bunch of money in parking garages. And we've got that land then that we can use for high dense development or green space if we want. I'm impressed with the amount of green space, how we're using the green space there. So great job. And I like the parking strategy.
All right. Anyone else? Hearing no one, I just want to thank everyone on the team for the presentation, and we will move on to the next workshop agenda item, which is the Reimagine Reopen Main Street proposal.
So, hello everyone. I'm unmuting myself. I'm Grace Lunsford, and I'm going to share my screen real quick. See, here we go. And can everybody see that?
Sure can.
Looks good.
Wonderful. Okay, great. I'm going to make that small. But hi, so I am Grace Lunsford, and in case anybody doesn't know me, I serve on the Main Street Advisory Board. I was recently appointed by Mayor Bianca, and I am a resident. I do not own a business in Main Street. am self-employed, so technically I do run a business out of College Park. But I lived in Chicago for many years. I served on a couple of different boards in the film industry up there. And I've also traveled all over the world and all over the country. The year before we moved here specifically, we actually lived in 36 different cities for a year, teaching people about home science, which is my main gig because we have a TV show on PBS called Home Diagnosis. So that's just a little background on me. And what I am bringing to you tonight really actually lines up with the 6 West goals. So I was really excited to follow you guys. An excellent presentation as well. So as you can see right here, these are what we are proposing, college parklets. Parklets is actually the term. This is not a new concept. In fact, a lot of the information that we pulled and the images you will see in tonight's presentation are from 2 different studies, the National Association of City Transportation Officials, as well as this amazing study from UCLA called Reclaiming the Right of Way, which is a 175-page study on parklet success in different cities like Vancouver, Philadelphia, San Francisco, New York, just to name a few. So with that inspiration, and in this very interesting time of our own businesses struggling and our worlds, being minimalized in new ways, we want to make sure that our businesses have the maximum opportunity to thrive in this environment. So our goal with the college parklets is to create a safe outdoor environment, and it's also to nurture our community and bring people locally. We've all been shut in our house all week, right? So the goal of this project is to help bring people out to, specifically on the weekends, which hasn't necessarily been a college park habit. And again, these parklets will hopefully mirror the future of 6 West and bring some attention to our town. And tonight I'm going to be telling you about our pilot program, which is just one parklet. Hopefully with the success we can do more. But this one that I'm going to tell you about tonight will encompass 4.5 spaces in front of Virgil's and Milk and Honey on Main Street. So real quick, just imagine yourself walking down Main Street, you're leaving City Hall, and you see the glow of the lights on the sidewalks. And you can see the wisp of greenery, and you hear live music, and you see people outside enjoying themselves and dining. This is what we are going after. This is our goal with Chicago Parklets. So let's continue, and let's see how to, there we go. Oh, I went too far. Sorry, there we go. So this next slide, you can see right here, we've got a traditional outdoor dining space. So just a couple of tables right outside, the sidewalk is right there. If you've ever been to South Beach or other large outdoor dining venues, the sidewalk will sometimes go straight through it. I'm going to mention that because I'm going to come back to it. We are talking about doing a build out over 4.5 spaces, again, right in front of Virgil's and Milk and Honey on Main Street. We would be having a goal of creating a no curb environment. So we will not be just proposing to destruct any of the concrete, but build up over the parking spaces with a wooden structure. In some cities, actually, these parklets are brought out during favorable seasons and put away during inclement weather seasons, like, snowy Chicago winters, for example. So our goal is to create a nice no curb environment. So we have that ADA safety. And the other interesting thing that we are proposing in light of COVID is, instead of drawing a sidewalk straight through the dining environment, as I mentioned earlier, we would be rerouting the sidewalk so it comes along and goes around the parklet. So we don't have any patrons of the business feeling nervous of the additional traffic just coming through the dining area. And it's just a safety concern now, as we need to be keeping distance. Also, we would be talking about increasing lighting and greenery, and hopefully this will also bring another thing to light, which is lowering speed through Main Street, which we know College Park has a little bit of a speeding problem in some areas. And so our goal is that this can help bring attention to lowering the speed through this space. All right. Another reason why we think that this could be a really great community building aspect, and this is something that has been going on again in other cities, and we are picking up and advising our city to do the same, is to create a College Park Ambassador program. And this is a volunteer community organization that the Main Street Advisory Board would recruit and train. We actually have 96 residents already who are interested in helping to serve on this. Thank you, Bianca, for that face. And College Park ambassadors, we're asking the city to help provide them with PPE and also branded t-shirts and safety vests. Of course, our College Park ambassadors would already be served and helping assist our College Park community officer, which already helps just keep an eye on the downtown Main Street. But we want to make sure that crowds don't happen in this time. And especially if press does get wind of this, which we hope that the press will get wind of it. If we have other people coming in from all over Atlanta, we just want to make sure that we have a welcoming and safe environment. And so we hope to do this with the community involvement. And additionally, if you look over the right-hand image, the lower image, you see the white dots. This is from the Low Mill Entertainment Arts District, which is a redevelopment district in Huntsville, Alabama. And what you can see is it says 6 feet apart or 6 feet under. Our goal is to also implement this in the rerouted sidewalk to help people understand the right of way. And then also to have the memorial continue up through the alley towards the additional parking and an existing parklet that already is behind Milk and Honey, that restaurant right there that goes back towards the City Hall additional parking. Also in there, we do have that little gazebo area and stage, and we thought that potentially in this pilot project, if we could on Friday and Saturday nights hire local musicians to play, just to create a more inviting atmosphere as well. But currently right now, we do have, as of today, 199 deaths in our county community. And this is one way that we felt that we could bring attention and remembrance to those who we are sadly losing in this time. The phase to begin this is, first we need to hire an architect for design and engineering. We have already received 2 bids from architects who are interested in this project. But then the materials, the lighting, the greenery would be purchased by College Park and built by College Park city staff, whichever workers are appropriate for that. The parklets would then be planted and painted by hopefully the College Park ambassadors for a bit of a community building and also a positive press event where we could be announcing this pilot parklet, College Parklet. And but the maintenance of the materials we would hope would be maintained also by the city. The pilot program would run just on the weekends, Thursday through Sunday, for 8 weeks. This is what we would be promoting. Obviously, this would be creating additional dining spaces for these 2 pilot restaurants. And should they continue to use it all week, that's fine. But as far as encouraging any additional live music and having the College Park ambassadors, they would only be there for the Thursday through Sunday 8 weeks pilot project. Again, we would absolutely want to have collaboration with the College Park Police Department and the Community Safety Officer during this time. And then hopefully with the success or unfortunately the failure of this pilot, we could determine the future. We'd like to additionally expand them to other areas on the College Park Main Street, potentially identifying up to 6 college parklets. again, encouraging that atmosphere, drawing people down here and getting them excited about 6 West. Right here is a little bit of a very, very, very standard markup. But so that you can see, there's Virgil's, there's Milk and Honey, and a bit of a park would come out over those 4.5 spaces. We do not know if a provisional alcohol ordinance is required for this outdoor consumption, or if it's something that falls under, like the brake pad has an outdoor seating area. But this is something we're bringing to Mayor Council for advice on. And Milk and Honey and Virgil's are very excited to participate in this already, and they will commit to providing the outdoor furniture and cleaning and helping make sure that the area stays maintained and safe. And also maintain COVID etiquette, which is now a new thing that is in our life. So the budget that we are asking for is $20,000. Basically just for the design and build out of this first college parklet. And then the College Park Main Street Advisory Board will recruit and train the volunteers. And then also our goal is to identify and advise on future college parklets. And then from College Park, we would like your commitment to provide funds for this, resources as far as staff to build it out, and also your connections for materials and greenery and lighting. And then also assist in press and communication to help make sure that this is a success, but especially communicating directly to our community. Really, this is a goal to bring our neighbors out to help support our local businesses, especially after we are all, in these constant Zoom meetings in our homes all week. The fact that we can just walk very nicely up to our main street and keep our local businesses going is a primary goal of the College Parklets, reimagine, reopen the right of way. So College Parklets, let's get businesses back to work and improve our downtown and make a difference. So with that, I will stop my screen share and then also see if anybody has any questions.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I love the idea. Anyone have any questions?
I have a question and a comment. Of course, we've talked about this in Main Street Association meetings, so I'm pretty knowledgeable on the project. But Grace, the one thing that got brought up in the meeting was some concern for people who are walking on the sidewalk on the periphery, that they not be struck by a car or what have you. And I know that was just a sketch and a mock-up that you put there.
100%.
but there would need to be something along the street side of that sidewalk area. And I want to make sure that everybody on council understands that we did talk about the need for protection for people walking around the periphery. But the whole idea of the periphery was keep people from walking through the restaurant goers there, as you explained.
Yeah.
So
so that mayor and council knows, that is one of the things that we would absolutely be putting forth to the design architects that we bring on.
Okay, that I just wanted to confirm that everybody understood that there's going to be something around there.
Yeah.
I just don't know where we get the money.
Yeah.
Well, did Mr. Gay have a question, Councilman Gay?
No, not at this present minute.
Okay.
Not at this very second, no.
Well, additionally, if money is a problem, which it very well may be, the Main Street Advisory Board does have a little bit of money. We do not have the full budget, but we could meet it by half.
Any thoughts from council?
Is that just to build the one in front of Virgil's, 20,000? Just for Virgil's?
I mean, that is the preliminary estimate. Once we actually have the funds and can hire an architect to really do the full, implementation, design implementation, we'll really know. But I will say from the studies, from the UCLA study and from the National Transportation of the city organizations, the 20,000 mark did come in as a preliminary estimate for a parklet.
I wonder if it would be possible to involve somebody like Home Depot, for example. Home Depot has participated in a number of civic projects. I think they were, if I remember rightly, I think some of them were more geared toward youth, for example. But I would think that Home Depot has been doing well during this period with a lot of the construction and so forth going on. And I would suggest that we might want to see if we can solicit some help from Home Depot. Maybe we can get free lumber, for example, or something of that nature.
Or Lowe's. I mean, since we've got the Lowe's at Camp Creek, and I know that they've worked with other organizations in our community in the past. It's largely centered around youth, but you never know. I mean, they may have something for community development like this.
That's exactly where I'm going.
I don't think it ever.
That's a great idea.
And Julian had a comment.
Yes. Basically, this idea came out of the residents of College Park. They were looking for outdoor seating in the Main Street area. So when we talked about it in the Main Street, we thought it was actually a good idea, right? It's actually because of the, what do you call it? Because they have put restrictions on the number of spaces that we could have on the inside of the restaurants based on the square footage. Some like take my restaurant for instance, I can only seat half of the amount of people that I normally have in my restaurant. So with that being said, I normally seat 80 to 85 or more people in my restaurant. I've only been able to seat 40. So as part of COVID-19, this was something that was suggested that we thought it was actually a good idea that would actually help the businesses that's already in College Park maintain and actually handle extra seating on the outside in order to help them get back on their feet. I know that the Main Street organization has agreed to put $10,000 towards this this venture, right? We would actually ask for some support from College Park. If not, we don't know actually how much it's actually going to cost. We still got to go out and, deal with the architect, deal with the engineer to make sure that everything's in safety, right? But we would love for you guys to actually chip in and pitch in just for a pilot program for these two restaurants, and then maybe extend extra down the line. So that's where we started on this.
One observation, Julian, that I think maybe I made at the Main Street meeting was that from the city standpoint, our restaurants are limping along right now.
Right.
And as you pointed out, with reduced capacity. So money that we invest in this as a city, if we can reignite the downtown area, we're going to get revenue back in the form of mixed drink tax and occupancy tax and what have you.
Right.
So there will be a return on that investment. Now, what it is and how quickly it comes, I don't know. But anything that will draw people to College Park, as long as we control it safely,
that's correct.
I think is a big advantage.
Even though we've added this, that was a College Park or MARTA study that had happened. And one of their goals was actually to get rid of the parking spaces in front of those two restaurants. Right. So there is a potential for MARTA or even GDOT in order to pay for the rest of this if we decide to expand this down the road, right? So this is just a pilot program that we're trying. We want to see if it actually works. And then if it does work, right, whatever funding we can come up with as an organization, we'll put towards that. And then after that, you know, if Marta or GDOT agrees to actually pay for the rest of these parklets to go in front of the other restaurants, that would be great for us. So this is something for us to think about.
I actually think it's a great idea and a great project. I think Lowe's would be willing to help, or, you know, I think some citizens would be interested in chipping in as well. But
I know
I think it's a program that we need to have to jumpstart all the restaurants. We need to help any way we possibly can from the city.
Amen.
So,
Councilman
I'm all
Gay,
in for that.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Councilman Allen. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Councilman Gay, I believe you wanted to speak.
Oh, I was gonna say to Julian and
Grace.
Ms. Grace, the city giving up its parking spaces is, in my opinion, the largest concession we can make here tonight. That's the huge concession of it in itself.
Right.
My understanding, let me finish, please. My understanding is that, and I'm a nationally recognized landscape contractor. My understanding is that you're gonna build a wooden frame level to the curb. Some ballast and a wooden frame and maybe some raw iron. I'm just gonna give you some advice. With citizen participation as well as some of our vendors, I think you can get this done way under, you know, your budget.
We just actually threw that budget out there. We don't know actually how much it's actually going to cost, right? When the MARTA study came in, it said that because of those parking spaces right there, it actually backs up traffic, right? So their idea is actually to get rid of those parking spaces, whether to turn it into concrete sidewalks or anything else that they decide or suggest, right? We were thinking about, you know, how can we help revenue for the restaurants and the business that we already have in downtown. It may not cost $20,000. It may cost less than that, right? We're just asking for your support in order to get the project done, right? And then we go from there.
Okay, so what does that support look like?
Yeah.
That support probably looks like about $10,000. And probably is looking like you guys look at the ordinance to say that, hey, you know, outside alcohol consumption, that's something that we can look at for that period of time. And or if it works out, extend it over that period of time and make it a part of the ordinance as far as the liquor license, right? And then, you know, it's just court actually dealing with the different departments of College Park, engineering, streetscape, and some of the other things that's already in place.
Yeah, so specifically, as was seen in the presentation, we're asking for funding. We're asking for police department support with the community service officer in collaboration with the College Park ambassadors. We're also asking for city staff support in the build out and potentially city resource in purchasing materials and greenery. If we don't get them for free from Lowe's, I would like to think that Lowe's would be excited, but I also don't want to wait forever to have this pilot project come into fruition. So I do think it's great to ask them, but I would also like the city to go ahead and make a commitment to match the funds that the Main Street Advisory Board is putting forth so that this pilot project can happen sooner than later. And then therefore, if we have real success with it, not only can we leverage that in our ask to Lowe's for more materials for other restaurants and other venues on our large Main Street area that does not have a ton of outdoor eating. So that's what we're specifically asking for.
And mind you, if the Main Street organization is putting $10,000 toward their funds and it only costs $15,000, right? This is a pilot program, right? We just want to see if it works.
Right. So, I mean, ultimately, if we could split the bill 50-50 when it comes out, that's what would be great.
Have you had any conversations with GDOT?
GDOT, Renee, would you like to chime in on that? Because I believe you know more of the history there. Oh, we can't hear you.
I can't hear it right now, but I do know that we would have to require a permit in order to build out on those parklets for GDOT. I think Army has already had some contact with some people in order
And
to figure
Jackson
that
Myers.
out. Yes,
And I've
Jackson
requested.
Jackson.
Yes,
Yeah.
I've requested him to be on the call tonight, but I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't see if he's on or not.
He's
but-
watching. He's watching because he sent me a text saying that
Yep.
a GDOT consult would be necessary on this.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
oh, there
I
he
should have
is.
moved Jackson over to.
There he is.
I
All
moved
right,
him
Jackson,
over.
if you want to unmute yourself, we need to wrap up this conversation though, because we do have one more issue to discuss during our workshop session. And I want to make sure that we have ample time to get to it. But Jackson, do you have anything to add quickly?
It's just quickly that, yes, we need to, we have to coordinate with District 7 office and Area 3 office. Since it is since the DOT owns everything up to the building line. That's what we had to do when we first did the streetscape project. So
Okay. So would it be prudent to consult with GDOT to see what their issues are, or I mean, how that would work? I mean, we don't take votes, generally speaking. We try to avoid votes during a workshop session, so a vote would happen during the regular session anyway. But if we don't know what GDOT's saying about this, I'm a little hesitant to move forward on a commitment if GDOT's just gonna. I'd like to know what GDOT thinks. If
Sure. When going to GDOT, would it be beneficial to have a letter of intent from the city of College Park?
I mean, I think that, I mean, is the thought of the body that we are generally supportive of this project?
I certainly am. And I think we have a strong indication from GDOT that they support taking those parking places out. I don't
And that
think
was
that's
through the model study. That was through the model study that we already actually have.
And I think there's been communication back and forth already.
About this particular project?
Yes.
no, not this.
Oh, okay. All right. All right.
the
Some of
project,
you are saying
though.
yes and some of you are saying no. So
Not the project, but the taking out of the parking places.
understood.
Yes.
Okay, so when you take out the parking places, what are you going to put there? If you're going to take them out, there's either going to be sidewalk, or there's going to be a build out, or there's going to be benches or something. So I would argue, and I can't speak for Jackson, but I would argue that GDOT has already conceived of something happening in that area other than just blank space.
Sure, but are they okay with this? And I don't think that we have the answer to that question. And like I said, it is 7-11. We are running a little bit behind. I want to give Chaplain McKenzie her time to discuss the Ignite proposal. So can we get a little bit more information from GDOT and come on back?
Okay.
All right. But generally, if you need assistance from us and say in terms of we are generally supportive of the concept, absolutely. I think I'm hearing that from the body. So whatever we can do in that regard to support.
Just real quick, if you guys are in consensus with the project, if we can get a letter either from the city manager or Artie Jones or whichever department is going to actually handle this, what would be great is if we can take that to GDOT, right, and say this is what we're in consensus of. Maybe that way we can look at this project a little more seriously than actually having to come back and vote on it, right? The other thing is that I think that we should also look at is the ordinance on consumption on outside consumption.
Okay.
Right?
I gotta run. I gotta run.
Okay.
I gotta
Wonderful.
keep us on task. All right.
Gotcha.
But we can work on the letter and absolutely look at those other issues as well.
I appreciate
your time.
that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Item number 3. I don't have the words right in front of me. I can scroll down on my own. There we go. It's the Ignite project proposal.
Okay, we'll go back a slide to the, okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody. We'll start at the first slide. I guess this is cool too. I want everybody to see the picture. This is a picture of us when we were involved with the hotel to home project throughout the last 9 months. But I want to begin by thanking the leadership of the City of College Park for entrusting Adullam Ministries with the professional services contract that was awarded to us in fiscal year 2019-2020. That allowed us to assist citizens of College Park that were in need of utility, rent, food, clothing, different types of financial assistance, even emotional assistance. We were able to connect them with organizations that could help. We're also grateful for the overwhelming support that we have received from both of our mayors, Mayor Longino, who was our mayor at that time, and for Mayor Motley Broom, our council members, Clay, Wyatt, Taylor, Allen, and Gay. The partnerships that we've been able to form with organizations in the city, in the surrounding area, such as Woodward Academy, United Healthcare, Zion Hill CDC, Odyssey, St. John Family Life, just to name a few. We're grateful for that, for the community support, and also for our awesome volunteers. And it's just been a phenomenal year. And so we can go to the next slide. I'm just gonna move as fast as I can. I'm gonna be, let me move my face out of here. So this is just a little quick, the highlights of what we've done, because we just kind of want you to know it's one thing to ask. If you're asking someone for help that's already helped you, you want to let them know what you've done with what they've already done, what you've given to us. And so we have taken over 2,500 calls over the last 11 months. This is all as of last Thursday. We've received 14,500 in in-kind goods and services. We've assisted over 1,038 guests through appointments, and we have been, because of the kindness and the generosity of the community around us, we have raised almost $18,000 in additional donations, not including the over $3,000 that St. John Episcopal Church paid in utility bills for our College Park residents. We enrolled 28 volunteers, and we've accumulated over 500 volunteer hours. And we have also established partnerships with now 29 organizations. You can go on to the next slide. Our financial report, just to show you, we had 52,000 in expenses over the last 11 months. And the income that we brought in was 52,900. I won't get into all that because I know we don't have time, but that's just a breakdown of where the funding went for our program. You can go on to the next slide. So now for 2020, 2021, these are some of our goals. We want to do more. We realize that with the, you know what, the slide that was missing is just talking about what I don't know what happened to our COVID slide, but we know that we are now dealing with a COVID-19 pandemic world. We don't have any idea what things are going to look like, what the new normal is going to look like, but we know that we can anticipate that we're going to have a lot of people that are going to need utility assistance, food assistance. There's so much unemployment. We're actually going to be doing a specific program this year to help get people back to work. But during the COVID-19, these last 12 weeks, we've been able to deliver approximately 2,100 meals a week to different College Park seniors, citizens, and families with children, people that have been affected by COVID-19. We were able to volunteer with other organizations like Gooder, One Talent, Woodward Academy, Atlanta Community Food Bank, something that was set up with our mayor and the mayor of East Point. We were also able to receive over $4,000 in donations over these past 12 weeks, excuse me. And we were able to assist individuals with locating utility and housing assistance from other partner organizations. And so we're anticipating that we're going to be doing a lot more just in a different way in this upcoming year. So our goal is to receive, a lot of our things are going to be done through the phone and online, and we're expecting to receive over 5,000 calls. Our goal is to get over $20,000 in in-kind goods and services. We want to be able to assist hopefully, when they say assist, that means from the time a person calls us, we're actually able to get them a referral to an organization. So when we give those numbers, those are people that actually came to us and we were able to get them assistance. We know that we're going to have to raise more money. When I came to you all a few months ago, our budget for what we would like to see happen is $85,000 for the year, but we had to tailor that, cut it down, and we're looking at what the basic, the minimum that we can operate effectively on. We also going to look to get some more volunteers, more volunteer hours, and establish partnerships with more organizations. And I think this next slide might be one of my last. Oh, these are some of the projects that we plan to do. We still would like to be able to administer the College Park Community Grant Program, depending on what the city decides to do with that. We are going to have programs working with men and women with job training, because again, we know that is going to be really, really important. Some people are going to have to change careers, and we want to be there to help them facilitate that. We have a total project already planned out for that. We also are doing a cash program to help people to determine how they can manage their money better, make their money stretch, and savings. And of course, as long as this pandemic continues, we plan to be making deliveries. We're actually delivering food directly to senior citizens, groceries. Every week we're doing this, and of course the meals. And it's good to have Grace on today because she's one of our volunteers that helps to make that happen. Okay, and the last slide is just going to show you what our budget. Okay, so our income goal for this coming year is $60,000. College Park gave us a professional services contract last year of $35,000. We would love to be able to receive that same amount of funding this year. We know that we can raise $25,000 ourselves, and we'll do more if we can. We're just going to do the best that we possibly can. And so we're just asking again for your support. We are here to support the city and the citizens of our city. And again, we thank you for what you've done. And at this time, if anybody has any questions, I'm here to answer them. I think I did that in 4 minutes.
Appreciate it. I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
So what percentage of the money that you are using as your revenue is for administrative costs versus programming?
Right. Well, the way it turned out this year, it was about 45% that we used for payroll and and then the other 55% went towards programming. We had a lot of different projects, so a lot of our fundraising, pretty much what the city gave us was for us to be able to our administrative cost, and then we fundraised everything else, and then we did use some of those funds as well to do projects, because some of those funds did include workshops that we did throughout the year. So it was a 45-55.
And one other question about after your guests get referrals, what kind of follow-up is Ignite doing, and what kind of statistics do we have about their ultimate outcomes?
Okay, pretty much that's a good question. We keep a list of every person. Now, of course, during COVID, these last 9-12 weeks have been a different situation for us. We've had less people calling us needing food, and we haven't had anybody call us for utility assistance because of not in the city of College Park. So pretty much we keep a list, and our resource specialists and volunteers call to follow up with persons who have been served by us. When we did our workshop, the financial workshop, we reached out to every person that we had assisted during that time and invited them, because one of the goals is for people to not be in that particular situation again. So that's pretty much, it's just, have we been able to reach everyone? No, because some people move from the city, telephone numbers change, email addresses. When you email, you don't get the response. But we have been able to successfully to connect with 65% of the persons who we have serviced over the past 11 months.
Okay. Any other questions, anyone?
I have
Okay.
two comments.
Councilman Gay, go ahead.
Yes, Metro Urban Forum was here before us, and they asked for financial support as well. But I noticed y'all are doing both of y'all had the same delivery service with food. My question is it possible that you can coordinate the food part of your Ignite with his organization and take that responsibility away and use, because he also has a lot of other resources over at the farm?
Again, with the funding that the money that we spent for our food program, again, we partnered with a lot of organizations. So a great deal of the money that we spent for the food program was coming, I guess what I'm trying. We could do that. We could definitely do it. Meaning it wasn't city money, basically, because again, we were not in the food program business. We just got into this to fulfill a need here in the city of College Park. So we saw a need and we jumped in to do it. And what happened is we've had citizens. So we spent $4,000 on food over the last 8 to 12 weeks. And that money came from donations from the community. So yeah, we would be we'll work with the urban farm. In fact, we did 2 of our deliveries over the last 8 weeks. 8 to 12 weeks were food that we picked up from the urban farms. So we would definitely collaborate with them.
My second comment is that in Ward 4 and in parts of Ward 2, we're seeing several programs. There is a ACE Atlanta that has moved to College Park. There's a sober living program that has moved to College Park. So, and then there's a nonprofit ACE Park. My question to you is Ignite coordinating any efforts with these programs? Because they're putting people into the apartment communities for a period of time. And I'm just wondering, are they doing some of the same thing you're doing? And are you able to coordinate your outreach with them?
Pretty much, again, my responsibility is to find out what organizations are here in College Park and to coordinate with them. Ignite traditionally does not provide services. So those organizations, they're the providers. Those would be our partners. So we would work alongside of those organizations to refer people, like we did with the Hotel to Home program. We did go out looking for families, but again, we did not place those families in homes. But once those families got in homes, we helped them get to that program, qualify whatever they need, whatever help the hotel program needed for them to qualify. And then we got them food, clothing, working with different organizations during that time. So what I'd like to be able to do is, if you know of organizations that we have not tapped into, let's talk about it. I will reach out to those organizations, because that's basically what I need to know. I need to know who's here in the city so that we can better assist our citizens.
Anyone else?
I think we need to recall how we got here. This is the third try on the part of the city to put in place within the city a function. And at one point it was in the city clerk's office, then we outsourced it to another organization in the city as a second try, and the third try is Ignite, which has been incredibly successful. We got there because we had assigned a person in City Hall to do this coordination function. And that is the primary role of Ignite. Ignite is to connect people with resources. They're asking for, I think it was 35,000 now with your pared down budget. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Jamil?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the question that comes to my mind is, given the current situation we're in, do we feel the need, if we had a city coordinator, for example, doing this instead of Ignite, would we want to say, lay that person off to save their salary for the city? If the answer is no, then for $35,000, we are acquiring much larger services and capability than we would if we had one person working in the city clerk's office. And that's the way I look at it.
The only thing I would push back on is that every single department has gotten cuts. I mean, every single one across the board. So we funded them at the level of 35,000, and I think Ignite does great work. I also think that 45% of expenses for administration is pretty high for nonprofits. But I mean, there's literally not a department in our city through our budgeting process that has not seen some level of reduction. So I understand the need. I understand that the need is even more acute now. But I don't know that if we can fund it, that we can fund it at the same level, given the budgetary constraints that we have.
And I would certainly agree with that, Mayor. The point I was trying to make is, when you talk about administrative costs, if you had someone in the city's clerk's office full-time doing this job, it would be all administrative costs. And they would not be doing all the other things with volunteers that Ignite has done. So the leveraging that we get out of that one position outsourced to Ignite is incredible. Now, should we cut back on that? Can we cut back on that? Yeah, maybe it's $30,000. I don't know. But I'm saying that position, even though it's being done by a nonprofit, it's a pure administrative function, the way we have conceived of it.
Thank you for that clarification, because that's really, that's what makes us different. We're a nonprofit that's doing the program, but we're not operating as your traditional nonprofit. Yeah, we're just another branch of the city.
Let me just add as well that the expectations for Ignite, when the money was given to them last year, was to do the referrals and get involved and help people find places to stay and shelter and clothing and so forth. I think what they've done this year has far exceeded that. I don't think they planned on getting into the food distribution. I don't think they planned on getting into providing a lot of clothing for apartments that burn up. I think they have jumped in far beyond what we expected them to do. So
absolutely, I think Ignite has done great work.
Yes.
Absolutely. I would, as we move forward, and I would like to see some data about what's happening to the folks that are coming to Ignite.
Sure.
And how, those ultimate outcomes and what kind of difference it's making.
Sure. I will get that to you ASAP, because we have it. It's just a matter of just pulling it off the computer.
All right.
Okay.
Any other questions for anyone? All right. Seeing none, it is 7:31. I need a brief break before we begin the regular session. So if we can convene at 7:35, that would be helpful. But if anyone else has anything else to add, or we're just gonna. All right. Okay.
Let's go on break.
All right.
I can use a break too.
See you in 4 minutes.